Hi guys, and welcome to episode 2 of Warzone Wamblings podcast. This week we are going to be talking about the Netflix TV miniseries Dahmer, and as always we're going to be commentating over some very sketchy Warzone footage of me playing with the boys. And if you tuned in for some high level quality gameplay, you're going to be extremely disappointed. But we move on now. You see, we've got Shane, we've got Adam, we've got myself, and we've got Mikey playing this week. We actually had a full cast, and this is actually recorded footage of the second half of our mass session we had about 2 weeks ago. But let's get into it. Dahmer on Netflix. My word, what a show! And this is sort of similar to the biopic or the sort of mini series about Ted Bundy with Zac Efron. What's it called? Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. If you haven't seen that, I recommend that as well. But we're going to be talking about Dahmer specifically today, purely because I think it's the most uniquely sort of filmed true story, especially when it comes to serial killers. And something that I think that stands out about it is in real life, I'm not going to be talking about the actual real life case itself. I should put that out there. I'm just going to be talking about the Netflix adaptation of it and the way it is filmed. Because I don't know, it's hard to put into words because, like with Ted Bundy and some of these other serial killers, John Wayne Gacy in particular, were pretty much the full-on definition of what you'd call a psychopath or a sociopath. Showing absolutely zero remorse and sometimes even mocking it. Um, that in itself was a little bit different with Dahmer because he actually recognised what he was doing was wrong. He just couldn't stop it. Not that that makes it any better, and thoughts go out to the family of the loved ones that he took. But the way this is filmed is it's kind of like Hannibal season 3. It's very distorted. The first thing I should probably mainly point out is the time jumps. It's a lot of time skipping. It sort of goes from his childhood to like 7 years later and back and forth. The whole series actually starts with how he got arrested, and a potential victim managed to escape, and taken back to Dahmer's apartment, and the police found the evidence. It was a bunch of photos and a vat of acid that he was using to dissolve the bodies. And yeah, the way it's shot with the whole time jumping, I think it's done to sort of mimic Dahmer's mind in this sense that, because even though he knew what he was doing was wrong, he clearly wasn't at all with it. He was very extremely disturbed, not just to do the things he did, but as an individual as well. If you look at some of the stuff that he did even before the murders, when he was arrested at a fair for being smashed out of his face and publicly masturbating. Not normal behaviour. Well, it might be in my hometown, Red Hill, but in general, people don't normally do that. So the whole timing jump, it sort of keeps you really off kilter, and it's very effective to watch. Another thing is a lot of the visuals almost seem like hallucinations, like particularly like the very first scene with the guy that manages to escape. It's a lot of I'm sure you're all aware Jeffrey Dahmer was homosexual, and it's very homoerotic, but it's very distorted, and it's almost like a sort of acid trip. And I don't know if that was intentional to try and say keep you off kilter, because it's quite bizarre sometimes, but it's matched in itself with the performance from Evan Peters, who plays Dahmer. He looks extremely troubled with everything. There's certain scenes with one of his victims that I don't think was intending to be a victim. It was someone he wanted a relationship with, and when it suggested that this person might leave him, even though it's not, that's how he takes it. You can see the look in his eyes. You can see his face drop. And Evan Peters does such a good job of it as well, because I'm a big fan of actors who can convey emotion without speaking. And yeah, the look in his eyes sometimes, it's like you can see the very change in him, the very essence of this maniacal rage building up with him, because a lot of Dahmer's thing was with he didn't want people leaving him. He didn't want to be alone. and that was part two of some of the stuff that happened in his childhood. He was left on his own. He was left on his own for a few weeks when he was a teenager when his parents split. I think he went to live with his dad, and then his dad fucked off with his new girlfriend or something along those lines. So Dahmer's whole vice was, people not leaving him, and when it looks like someone might leave him, the way that Evan Peters displays it. If you've ever seen the movie Joker of Joaquin Phoenix at the end, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I was just going to comment on this. I was very unhappy with that person, so I gave him a little tea bag. And the fuck is going on with your face? You look like me during my Marilyn Manson era. Anyway, enough of that. Yeah, so a huge appreciation for what Evan Peters does, because with Zac Efron when he played Ted Bundy, you could see this manipulative character, this charming character that Ted Bundy was, and Zac Efron delivers that perfectly. And with Evan Peters, you can literally see the conflict of emotion in his head, and even when he gets caught as well. No, he's not. It's like some of the serial killers where it's like, haha, I'm famous, I did this, I did that. You can tell he's very aware of what he's done is wrong, but he's trying. It's almost like he doesn't. He knows he's done something wrong, but he can't almost bring himself to face it. He kind of he very much washes it off, especially in the interrogation scenes. And because the police officers are talking to him, and he's just admitting everything, but he's not doing it with that, that proudness of I am a monster and I have done all these things to these people. It's just a case of that's what he did, and he's not ashamed nor proud of it. It's a very tricky role to play, I can imagine, in real life anyway. But playing a real life actual murderer, but to do it so convincingly, huge shout out to Evan Peters. And another actor that deserves a huge shout. I'm actually going to stop talking again, because watch this bullshit kill. I'm convinced that this person has a hack, an aimbot hack. It was bad shooting by me, but watch this kill cam back. Look how quickly their gun locks onto me. That he followed me around. Look, snapped straight onto me. I think he's got a fucking aimbot, and he could just be better than me, but you never know. Yeah, so that was Evan Peters, who played Dahmer. And next is got to be a shout out for Glenda Cleveland, who plays Dahmer's neighbour. For all of you who don't know anything about the Dahmer case, he lived in a predominantly black area in the late 80s to early 90s. Wait, was that? Yeah, it was late 80s to early 90s, sorry. Predominantly black area of Milwaukee. And, his neighbour, Glenda Cleveland, I can't remember her real name, I should have written that down. No, she tried to alert the police multiple times, because from her perspective, you don't get to see a lot of the kills in this TV series. It's a lot is left to your imagination. And, she lives next door to him. She can smell the meat rotting. She's made complaint, and nothing's been done about it. And sometimes she even hears the murders through I want to say it's an air vent, sort of in between there. She hears sort of raised voices, and then a sort of a scuffle, if you will, and then silence. It is fucking eerie as fuck. And Glenda Cleveland as well, because I spoke about Evan Peters, conveying emotion without having to say anything, and those scenes just where she's on her own and just having to hear this, you feel it, like she conveys it brilliantly. Yeah, it's such a tough one as well, but I'm very glad that they didn't put in, many of the actual murders, just for the, I think it would be distasteful. They did the same with Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, because at the end of the day, I think we should all remember the victims in these cases. And yes, so when Glenda Cleveland plays that, and the way, because from what I understand, the way she portrayed her character, not her character, the real life person, was extremely accurate from all accounts, from what people have said about the series. She was being ignored the whole time, and there is the whole race thing about it, because I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but being a black person, you know, in a suburb. You know, police tend not to, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, there was a lot more of that certain R word about. But she was ignored, and a lot of it was allowed to continue. Just the same with the Ian Watkins case that I spoke about in Beyond Fiction. So yeah, but the final shout out for the actor has to go for the has to blah, blah, blah. See, this is the good thing about podcasts is as much as I do have a script, you know, I'm not editing this bit. You actually get to see how much my mouth malfunctions on me. But I've got to give a huge top tier performance to Richard Jenkins, who plays Dahmer's father. I'm going to stop talking because you just need to watch what's about to happen. Sit down. But yeah, Richard Jenkins, who plays Dahmer's father, my word, what a performance! Because you know, as I've said before, they don't try and glorify anything that he did, and as much as you do sort of come to understand Dahmer or why he was the way he was, you know, they don't make you feel sympathetic. But you know, Richard Jenkins as Dahmer's father, just imagine being in his shoes. You know, he even tries to take the blame on himself for the way his son turned out or the things that his son did, and it's actually sort of mortifying and heart-wrenching to watch him go through this shock of this has happened, your son has done this, and more things slowly being revealed. Richard Jenkins has been, you know, around long enough, very experienced and sort of, what's the word I'm looking for when someone's experienced? Veteran, a very, you know, veteran actor, and this might be his sort of top performance. Yeah, every scene that he's in or he's talking to his son, it really sort of just pulls you in, and yeah, just imagine that, just finding out that one of your children has done all this, and the information slowly being leaked out, bit by bit. Yeah, I do highly recommend that you watch this mini series because it is very disturbing, but it's also it's disturbing because, you know, not only were the crimes disturbing, but you know, Dahmer himself, I said at the beginning, he was an extremely troubled individual. He didn't enjoy doing what he was doing. He just felt the need to. He didn't want to be alone. And oh, you can see that my controller disconnected and I got a shot. That's fucking annoying. But another reason I want to talk specifically about Dahmer is the political side of it, because when this came out, there was backlash from both sides of the political spectrum. The right side, or the more conservative Republican, whatever you want to call it, believed that this miniseries was essentially pandering, or it was propaganda to sort of drum up support for the black and gay community. There were some people out there because, you know, as I said before, the police aren't painted in a light way in this, and if what they did was true, where they were just ignoring her because, you know, she was black or it was a black community, you know, they deserve to be put in the spotlight. And there's even one thing that did happen, which is in the miniseries as well, was one of Dahmer's younger victims, 14-year-old called Conarec Synthesone. Sorry if I can't pronounce that right. Conarec, I'll call him Conarec to remember him. He did actually escape Dahmer. And when he was found by the police, Dahmer just told the police that they'd have a lover's spat, and they allowed the 14-year-old boy to go back with him and not listen to his neighbour. You know, if that was all stooped in racism, you know, and then it deserves to be called out. But yeah, a lot of people on the right were saying that this was, you know, what's the phrase they use? Where you're ticking boxes. What's it called? Pandering. I say that word quite a lot. There's virtue signalling. That's the one. Because obviously, you know, there's a lot of gay victims in this, but it's actually a true story. Jeffrey Dahmer was gay, and a lot of his victims did happen to be black and gay. So I don't know what the beef is there. It's the story told the way it is, and exactly the same can be said for the, you know, people on the left who complained because they said it would paint gay people in a bad light. And it's like, well, no, that's not the case, because in this whole mini-series there is about 50 different gay people, and some of them are murdered, and only one of them is a bad person. But they were saying that they should have made Dahmer gay, heterosexual. They should have made Dahmer heterosexual for the mini-series because they didn't want to paint gay people in a bad way. And again, that's just not the case. Dahmer was gay. He was a bad person. And you know, if you're suggesting that he can't be painted in a bad way because he's gay, then you're essentially saying that only straight people can be painted in a bad way, which is the literal definition of bigotry itself. Judging someone and putting them in a category by their sexuality is bigoted. So yeah, the fact that there was an uproar about this, apart from the fact that it is an extremely well done miniseries and heart wrenching to watch, you know, even a real life story has the political backlash. That's actually what makes, you know, producing any kind of content hard, because I speak about it so much, you know, people being offended by everything, and even a true story offended people because it was depicted accurately. But that's just, you know, that's what it is. But in itself, I highly recommend that you watch Dahmer on Netflix. It's still on there. It's still, you know, well high rated. I know a lot. I know a lot of my friends aren't homophobic, but you know, there is that sort of, if you're heterosexual, there can be a tendency to sort of cringe if you see a gay scene or anything like that. I'm fortunately not like that, because one of my ex-girlfriends watched Queer as Folk, and I'm now desensitized her watching two dudes banging, which is kind of weird. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I could literally have it on in the background and it wouldn't bother me. I could carry on. I wouldn't have it on in the background anyway, just like I wouldn't have regular porn. But you know, there is a lot of that, and there is a lot of distorted visuals and distressing scenes. I say they play on it very well. The actors don't have to say much to say, you know, get a point across, and it doesn't have to show you too much in terms of the lives that were ended. It does just enough to, you know, it's a really, really, really well shot piece of storytelling. I keep calling it a story. I know it's not a story, but it's probably one of the best true story adaptations I've ever seen, and I think it deserves sort of a lot more, because it had like a lot of recognition when it came out, but I think it deserves a lot more after that. I think it needs to be remembered. And yeah, also, if you also get a chance to watch Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, I believe that is still on Amazon, and that's another incredible one as well. Huge shout out to both teams on these miniseries. As for this podcast itself, I will be returning to my sort of camera videos in a couple of weeks. I haven't got a camera at the moment, so this video and the next one will obviously be podcasts, just to help me keep getting content out. But because I can now do these videos, I can now get the content out to you once a week at least, because I haven't got to set up a camera. So 1 week I'll do a short video with the camera, and 1 week I'll do a podcast like I'm doing now. But I'm probably going to bring this podcast to a close now, after just speaking a little bit about a brilliant bit of TV that, you know, I hope you might go out and watch now that I'm babbling a bit. But these podcasts are actually harder because, well, no, it's easier. Like, it requires a lot less effort in terms of I get to do some gaming with my mates and then load it up to my laptop and then just run a commentary over it. But I don't know, it's a bit of a tricky one, but you know, I'm enjoying it and getting to share some clips with you guys as well. So 1 week I'll do a camera video, the next week will be a podcast. If you want to hear me talk about another TV show, let me know in the comments. If you are new here, please subscribe. I am now going to be uploading once every week. I have no excuse not to. Hopefully I can upload more. Maybe when I've got to get used to technology, because I am such a technophobe. But yeah, if you did like this video and you're going to watch Dahmer, leave a cheeky like. And this, I'm going to finish off now. This gun in front of you is the build of Ryan's SIG 716 that he uses now on. So if you've read The Taste Beneath and Diseased Intentions, that is what the gun looks like, or close enough to it. This is obviously just a build of my M4. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and always much love, take care, and peace.